This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome everybody, welcome all our Torah Anytime viewers. Okay, so today we are continuing on the topic of proving that the Torah is divine. The last, it was 2 weeks ago. Last week I missed it. 2 weeks ago we spoke about the Har Sinai. We spoke about the proof of the validation that when we got the Torah on Har Sinai through Moshe to the Jewish people from God, got all the parts right, this was such a unique event that it would never occur again in the history of the world to date. Now, I do want to go and do a quick recap on last week. I usually don't. The reason why I need to do this this week is for two reasons. Number one is because it's sort of a continuation, so whoever didn't listen, they'll have an understanding in it. Number two is because it was very complex, and I saw a lot of blank faces. And I actually, before I uploaded it, I sent it to a few people, and I said, listen to it. Is this clear? Do I have to redo it? Is it something to understand? So, I don't know if they said, okay, it's good because they like me, or they're my family, which they were, or other reasons. But for all, purposes, I think it is very important to review it because it is extremely, extremely important. And the reason why it's so important is that when you're dealing with something, the stronger the foundation it is, the better off that you are. Think of this as a relationship between a husband and wife. If you have a really strong foundation, a really strong relationship in the foundation aspect of it, then you'll be able to accomplish anything. If your foundation is very weak and shaky and, you sort of got married because you got older and you were like, all right, listen, you're 30, I'm 35, let's just do this, and so it's like, that's not really a strong marriage building, foundation. Now, not to say that they can't build a stronger foundation at a later given point in time, but when you have a really strong foundation, you're able to accomplish a lot. And I'll explain it to you like this. There are therapists, I don't know about all of them, but there are many of them, the good ones at least, when they're going through marriage therapy, right? If the couple comes from the marriage therapist for marriage therapy, what they try to do, or at least what some of them try to do, is they're very much unhappy now, right? To go into therapy, that comes to a point that you're obviously not happy in the relationship. So what the therapist tries to do, and what they should try to do, is try to bring them back to a point where they were once happy with each other, where they once loved each other, where they once were so infatuated with each other they wanted to do anything for each other. The idea is to bring them back to a certain point, and where does that point usually lie? It's usually in the foundation, laying of the relationship. So when you look at the foundation of Judaism, the foundation of Judaism is when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. It's literally where the start of the whole Jewish nation came. So if this is if you have a very, very strong foundation, then you're able to build on it. But if you're like, I don't know, did it really happen? Maybe everyone was on drugs, it was really good, there was a really good distributor at that point in time, right? Al-Jariz Al-Habi, I don't know, is that an Egyptian name? I don't know Egyptian names. We're assuming some Egyptian drug dealer, right? He went and he was able, Colombia was too far. So assuming that he was able to go and give everybody, and everybody was on a super high, you could go and start having excuses on different variations of what really happened, and then say, you know what, maybe it didn't happen. But if you have a very strong foundation, if you know that it happened for certain, that Har Sinai, God gave the Jewish people the Torah, then you have something to build on. So that's why I think it's very important. So that's why I want to do a quick recap on it. Number one, one of the main points of this argument is that Judaism is unique to every single other religion in that every single other religion started off with one or two people being the prophet, the eyewitness, God spoke to me, God dealt with me. When you're dealing with the Jewish nation, you're talking about everybody. Like, who witnessed this? Everybody witnessed this. So you're talking about roughly about 3 million people witnessed the event when God spoke to Moses through and to the Jewish people, especially if the first 2 commandments of the 10 commandments were spoken directly to the Jewish people. Everybody heard God speak. Everybody saw, they were witnessing the entire event. Now, when you're dealing with validating a ancient history, current history, doesn't matter. The more eyewitnesses that you have, the stronger that your proof is. Think about a murder trial, let's say, right? So you have a murder trial, and if you have one eyewitness, that's very good, that's very strong. But imagine you have 10 eyewitnesses. That makes your claim much stronger. If you have 100 the more eyewitnesses that you have, the stronger the claim that you have. Think of it in religion. The more eyewitnesses that were there and were observed and were able to say, yeah, God gave the his holy book to this type of people, because we were there, we saw it. The more that you have, the stronger the foundation. And we went last week, and I'm not going to go through all the details. We went last week through every single different variation of a possibility of maybe it was made up this way, maybe it was made up this way, maybe it was made up this way, and we refuted all of them to show the validity of the Torah. Some of the ideas that we did speak about is, number one, is the bigger the event, the less likely you are to forget about it. So no one can come and say, hey, this happened to you, but you forgot about it. Or this happened to your ancestors, but you forgot about it. The more crazier the event, and the example that we gave before, I think, was skydiving into dolphins or whatever it was. If not here, I give it to somewhere else. But think of this idea. If, let's say, you go and one time you went skydiving, right? Because you don't have appreciation for your life, whatever it is. And you want to go skydiving. I'm just kidding. Forever, all those skydivers out there, enjoy it. Happens to be when I was 16 years old, I wanted to go skydiving so badly, and my parents wouldn't let me. Now, if you would offer me, skydiving with a prize, I wouldn't do it. I have too much to lose. I guess back then I didn't have anything to lose. I was a single, teenage guy. But when you appreciate life, you don't want to take risks. It is an interesting question, though. I don't know why we're speaking about skydiving, but it is an interesting question because if you think about it, you're not allowed to put yourself at risk. You're not allowed to put yourself at risk. If you do and you get saved, it is very possible that you're pulling from your merits in the next world to save yourself from this world. And that's when I was younger, I've never told you my life story. I probably will never. But I was a little bit on the wild side of I would do very, very crazy things and stunts and all those things. I would walk on like 6 floors on the ledge. I would do ridiculous things. And I felt a rush, felt a lot. It was like whatever. I don't know. I was crazy, stupid, and young. But people that do these type of things, you have to think about it because you could be using up your merits. God is saving you, but it's okay. Listen, you're doing dumb things. You're gonna die. So let me do this. Let me pull from this merit and this merit so that I can save you. So let's say somebody goes skydiving.
Skydiving is not allowed.
It's allowed if it's
skydiving. I want bungee jumping.
Congratulations. I'm not saying it's not allowed. I'm not saying allowed. I'm not just saying it might not be the smartest thing. I don't know. Whatever. Is it totally safe?
Yeah.
I don't know. They say now. They say like you could. It's more likely to die in a car accident than and definitely in Brooklyn. But I don't know about other places. It's like flying. I think they say about flying. Flying an airplane is like safer than like crossing a street or something like that. I don't know, or driving in a car, whatever it is. Yes, when you think about statistics like that, but if you know anything about math and anything about logic, then there are some things that would come into factor in that would say like, well, maybe bungee jumping, like, hey, you want to jump off a bridge holding by a rubber band? Maybe that's not the best idea all the time, to do that. And you know why people do this? They do this because it's a thrill of like almost dying, and then it's like, oh, I'm still alive, so I guess I can appreciate life for a little bit longer. And not you personally, everybody else, everybody but the people in this room and listening online and know people and have family members that did it or heard of somebody that possibly did it. I'm obviously speaking about the rest of the world. So. No, but the idea is, it's very interesting because when you think about it, you're not allowed to put yourself in danger. You have to guard your souls. Now, when you think about it, jumping off a bridge, holding onto a string, I've seen the uh-oh moments of those things, where like they jump, but the string snaps. They jump, but then it wasn't so tight, the cord. So the string was strong, the rubber string, what I don't know what it's called. I call it rubber band because I know whatever it wasn't so strong. So the spring bounced back up, but they kept on going down. So, and again, do you have to sign a waiver? Like, if you die, you won't sue us? I mean, I don't know, maybe your parents, I don't know.
For skydiving, not for a bunch of.
Oh, really? Interesting. Anywhere where you have to sign something like, don't, you're not.
You have to sign for snow tubing.
Oh, really?
Rock climbing.
Rock climbing makes sense. What?
About shooting.
Shooting?
Oh, duh.
Well, you're shooting I don't know where you're going shooting, but if you're shooting in a shooting range, that should be pretty safe. It really depends on your neighbor, not really you. If you're going in, southern, I don't know, Texas, and be like, you hear someone go, "Hee-ah!" He's like, "I brought my own guns." He comes in over there. He says, "Make Trump great again," or whatever, "Make America great again," right? In his hat, and he sees a dark tan person over there. It might be a good idea to leave. I don't know, whatever. It's my personal advice. But in any case, moving back to Judaism. how did we even get, where was I talking? Oh, yeah. Skydiving. What? Skydiving. So imagine you go skydiving, but it's not just a regular skydiving. You skydive into a pool of dolphins, and you don't even land. The dolphins are waiting for you. Have you ever swum with dolphins? You've probably swum with dolphins. Okay. All right. So I was a guess. I didn't know that. Okay. So assuming you swam with dolphins, there is a thing that you could swim behind two dolphins, and you're sort of like, I don't know, you're standing up on their backs, and they just like, they're like surfing. They just do their thing, they do their swimming thing, and you're standing over there. So imagine you parachute directly onto their backs, and they just like cruise you onto shore, slowly. And you're doing that while, I don't know, drinking a beer and, doing a crossword puzzle at the same point in time. Now, that's not something that you're going to forget, right? That's something that you'll probably remember for at least 6 days, right? Because Americans have short-term memories, we all know about this, right? This is why they had these videos, I forgot what they're called, that were created, only 6 seconds long or 7 seconds long. I'm like, I can't understand the vines, whatever it is. So I can't understand, like,
people have ADD.
People have such ADD. 7 seconds? Really? I mean, from what I hear, it closed down. It wasn't successful. But the fact that it was successful after such a long period of time, how much of a short attention span do you have that you cannot last 7 seconds without you know how bad that is? You know how terrible it is? I mean, I'm telling you, like, the way that we have it. You know why YouTube is so successful? Because people have ADD. People don't watch 5 minutes. Forget about an hour class, on YouTube. I mean, maybe some of them do, and Chazak Abu for everybody who does. But in generally, you watch 45 seconds, and then you have on the, the recommended for you, possibly you like, I don't know what it's called, right on the side, your wish list. You go on the side and be like, well, maybe you'll like this. Be like, maybe I will like this. And you click on this, and what happens? So every time you see another ad, and you keep on like scrolling back and forth into these things. Meanwhile, you haven't watched anything, and it's 16 hours later. You don't know where you are. You're lost. You're confused. You're hungry. It's like, it really is an addiction, by the way. But that's for a different class. Okay, let's try to go on topic. Guys, please, come on. All right? It's not good. Okay, so speaking back about Judaism, the greater the event, the more significant the event, the less likely you are to forget about it. Can there be, and if you can think about anything possibly greater than having a revelation from God, not just you one-on-one, like, uno al uno, mano al mano, I don't know Spanish, whatever, I don't know why I started this, but I'm ready here, right? So while, not like a private conversation, a whole group of people, a tremendous group of people, 3 million people are there conversing, with God, and that's not something you forget. So it's very, very unlikely that somehow this scenario never happened, and we say that it happened. Because even if you say that it never happened, and some guy came along and said, hey, you guys forgot a really big, interesting thing. You guys are the chosen people, and God spoke to you, all of you, and I don't know why everyone forgot it, but everyone forgot it except for me, and now I'm here to remind you. That's very unlikely because you don't forget such a thing. Not you, not your ancestors, not your great ancestors. If you have, you know how, like, every mother tells every child ever, you're the most special thing to me. I mean, every normal parent tells let's just leave it. Every parent tells a child, right? You're the most special thing to me. You're unbelievable, and they want to say how special you are. Now, imagine a family is from, let's say, a rabbinic origin or something like that. They're constantly bringing that up, right? Do you know who your family is? Do you know who it is? They're constantly bringing it up, and rightfully so. Would you not think that they would bring something up if, like, your granddaddy, spoke to God? Wouldn't that be something that would be brought up? The fact that somebody can claim that it was never happened and you making it up is so unlikely that it doesn't make any sense. Why doesn't it make any sense? Because we never see a parallel story like this in history. If we know history repeats itself. Why, the reason why historians, should be sought after, which they're not, is because history repeats itself. If you know history, you could already see what's going to happen. So, it never happened before, which means is that the only way that it could have happened is if actually it did happen. And we spoke about it last week, we're not going to go into all these things. Numerous times in the Torah it speaks about it. It says, don't forget what you saw. I am creating this treaty between me and you. It's God literally speaking to the people that left Egypt, that received the Torah. The idea is also, and this we didn't speak about last week, we should have, but we didn't. Rav Sadia Gaon in Emunot V'Deot, Ma'amar Shlishi Ot Vav, speaks about that is in a stuff he wrote called Beliefs and Opinions. He said that a report can be misunderstood or misrepresented in two ways. Number one, if it was a mistaken understanding, which means is that I tell you something, you have no clue what I'm saying, but you nod in agreement like you know what I'm saying, right? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Everyone's nodding. You know what I'm talking about. No, I was kidding. You know how you know these things. So I speak a lot in different places, so I get to see that, but not everybody gets to see that. But you ever have this thing when you're like saying something where you know the person does no clue what you're talking about? I mean, you're a woman, so you probably get this more when you're speaking to men. And what do? They're just like smiling and nodding, and like in a very blank look, and be like, yeah, sure. So. They obviously didn't understand. They didn't comprehend. El comprendo, right? We're going to go Spanish today, right? And it's going to be wrong. So I hope no one here speaks Spanish. So they correct me. It was? 2 years. 2 years Spanish. Okay, so you could correct me then. They're not going to know what you're talking about. Then it's very likely that they'll tell somebody else what they thought you said, but really you didn't say it. And it doesn't work, by the way. It doesn't work. And this is really for the men. Like, just to repeat the last sentence that somebody said. Well, of course I'm listening. Yeah, you said that Trump would make it great again in America. Right? I heard that, everything. You can't just repeat the last sentence and think that that's the whole idea of it. If you understand something, then you understand it. But if you don't understand it in the beginning, then it's very likely that you will misrepresent it later on when you're telling it to other people. That is one possibility of taking a report and spreading it out falsely. Another idea, and there's only two options, is where you will hear the report, but you will willfully, knowingly change it and tell it to other people. So those are two things. Either mistakenly do it or willfully doing it. The problem is that when you're doing this to a large group of people, it's impossible to do it. If you're doing it to a large group of people, you can't tell them, first of all, you can't assume that they all mistakenly understood it. You can't assume that nobody knows what they're talking about. Everybody was on PCP, LCD, I don't know, whatever other, ABC, that they were on, any drugs they want, and they all misrepresented it, because it doesn't happen in large numbers of quantity of people. Only in small numbers. You could say a small group of people will be like, yeah, we saw a cactus talk to us, and then we drink some sand, and now we're here. You could say it if there's one or two people, you could sort of keep a lie. But a group of people, you can't keep the lie. The other idea of mistakenly understanding something, if you're telling something to 1,000 people, it's very unlikely that all 1,000 of them is going to get completely the wrong idea, the same idea. It's unlikely. It's so unlikely that it never happened before. So these two ideas, if you're able to and of course this is how Rabbi Yagon goes and explains it, if you're able to go and remove these two doubts from a report, then you know that report was true. This is how we look at Har Sinai. Har Sinai, not only did we have a large group of people, but the fact is that this large group of people, it's impossible to go and to fabricate a lie or to mistakenly understand when you're talking about 3 million people. So that is the idea we spoke about before, and that is just the recap. Okay, so it took us a little bit longer than the 2 minutes that I was anticipating. Yeah?
But what about when people say, like, can you really prove for 100% fact that it happened? Because you can't actually find anybody that's,
So you could ask the same question about history in general. Can you prove 100% fact that Alexander the Great existed? I mean, it's written in history. Can you prove it? Well, the question is that if you're able to go and remove the reasons of doubt, which means that you'll remove the ideas of why people would want to lie about it, and if they can lie about it, then you're left with the idea, then yeah, it's most likely true. But what you say is very important. The word proof is a very, very strong word. You can't really technically prove anything to anybody ever. Even if you go scientifically and you prove with 100% accuracy, there's always remains some sort of doubt. No matter, I've spoken to people who are, let's say, this is a question that I ask often. I might have said this story before, that when they're about to get engaged or they're engaged, they're about to get married, one of the questions that I ask them, and I probably shouldn't, but I do, and I probably will still continue doing it, is how sure you are about it, right? Not the best thing to do to somebody, especially if they're, yeah. So I say how sure you are about it. Usually I get not so sure. The reason why I ask them is then I go and I'm able to go and guide them to like in a logical perspective, reasoning, is this a right decision? Which most likely, 99% of the time it is, especially if you're engaged already. Or, on the flip side where I get 100% sure, I'm sure that she's the one. I'm sure that he's the one. So very rarely I got it. In fact, I got it only once. and they're in the process of divorce now. So again, I don't know how accurate that would be, but I remember I said, I'm like, how sure are you about this marriage, about this thing? And the guy told me, he's like, 100%, no doubts. I'm like, high five, man. I'm like, that's unbelievable. I've never heard that before. I was like, that's crazy. And now it's kind of, dirty. So you never actually really know. Even when you think you know, you really don't know. So, but the idea is that when you're doing any decision in life, you do it to the best possibility. Think about any decision that you have ever made ever. Like you want to, I'm crossing a line now, but I'm going to go for it. You want to buy a $2,000 dress, right? And I went there. All right. Okay. So you go and listen. If I was speaking to guys, it would be a car. It wouldn't be $2,000 because
that's 200.
Yeah. So let's say you're going and you're putting a lot of money towards. And I might be way off. $2,000. Be like, well, yeah, that's my whatever someday. I don't know. Obviously can't read the room. So in any case, but the idea is, if let's say you spend a lot of money on a dress, do you know for certain that you'll love it forever? No. You might love it for a year, and then it might go out of style, and the color of this spring is orangutan. I don't know. I know that's not a color. I'm learning my colors. My daughter knows more colors than me. I'm not gonna lie. My daughter knows more. She told me about the color teal, and I'm like, what's? Yeah, I found out that. Yeah, it's unbelievable. I'm like, I never knew that's teal. That's blue to me, right? And I think to 99% of men, that's going to be blue. But there is like peach red, tangerine. I don't know if there's tangerine, but there's like all these different colors of the spectrum. We're basic. We know the rainbow colors, and anything in between them, we just round it off to the nearest color that it is, inside of it. But when you're getting something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll love it forever. You don't know. You have no idea. You have, in fact, and I don't want to scare you, and especially for the anxious people in the room, any decision that you're going to make ever, you're never going to know 100%. The way that you're going to know is based on the proofs and everything that you'll weigh yourself and say, okay, I am more likely going to be happy with this man. I'm going to be more likely happy with this woman than anybody else. And you say, Mazel Tov, let's break the glass, give me a nice engagement ring, and buy me stuff. Right? So, I don't know, depending on your mindset. It is. Anything is a leap of faith. But there's always logic placed into it. So, okay, let's move on. Good? Okay, good. Okay, we are cutting on such off tangents. Okay, I'm going to be here till midnight. I'm just kidding. I have to be out early. Anyways, so, okay, so let's speak about the first idea on this. The first idea is something very fantastical, which is a word that I just made up, if it is not true, is the 7-day week. It's something very interesting. We know why there is, most people... Everybody knows why in a solar calendar year there is 365 days, right? I gave the answer in the first part. The solar calendar, right? So the solar calendar, the reason is it makes sense because the world, the 365 days is around the sun. It's around the time to times to make the sun to do let's call it a lap, right? So why is there 12 months? Why is there 24 hours a day? If you look at all aspects of everything that we're dealing with in the calendar section, there is a astrological reason behind it. 24 hours a day, a month, a lunar month, a solar year. We have reasons behind it. Now let me ask you a question like this. Why do we have a 7-day week? Does anybody know why we have a 7-day week?
God created the world in 7 days.
Besides that reason, which is very obvious and true and correct.
The Russians tried 8 and it didn't work.
The Russians. It's always about the Russians. Did you guys hear this? Okay. It's a KGB, because they, after they messed up with Trump, they were like, okay. So,
I heard a really cute idea.
Yeah.
That Monday's paired with Tuesday. No, wait. Sundays with Monday, and Tuesdays with Wednesday, and Thursday is with Friday, and Saturdays with June.
Yeah. That's true. That's not that's more than cute. That's legit, right?
It's still cute.
Yeah. So, but if you think about it, what's the reason? Why does every single person that lives in society, again, I can't account for like the African tribes that they may have, some sort of, I don't know, a 10-day week or a 5-day week or whatever it is. Why is it that everyone has a 7-day week? You ever think about that? Like, it makes absolutely no sense. If you don't believe in the Torah, you don't believe that God created the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day, which is 1 week, why do we have a week? Why? You ever think about it? So nothing to do with the solar system. There's nothing that there is a week. What's in a week? There's nothing. And it's very, and I searched this for, amongst atheists, and they start claiming about the Babylonians that they started off, and there were other date variations, but it didn't work out. And the Babylonians, something very interesting about the Babylonians that they say that they are the ones who started the 7-day week. They claim that the 7th day was also holy, but the atheists very bold, made sure in caps and bold to say, but this is nothing to do with Judaism and nothing to do with Genesis and nothing to do with creation. They just happen to have a very holy 7th day also.
They didn't have 7 days?
They did, of course they did.
They did, so why
whatever, they don't know history. I'm saying, but whatever, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt and, let their voice be heard. But the idea...
reason for 7-day weeks?
The what?
There's no scientific reason for 7 days.
No scientific reason behind 7-day weeks. Yeah. This is somebody say, I don't believe in the Torah, I don't believe, then why do you have a 7-day week? That's right. The Kuzari brings us down. So it's something very interesting to think about. Why do we have a 7-day week? We know we have a 7-day week because God created the earth in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. That's Shabbat. That's a 7-day week. And then we have everybody else has a 7-day week. There's no other logical explanation other than that. And the idea is
developed over time, how they discover the world's closure.
if you think about it, why 7?
I don't know, maybe they broke it up into 12 months and then they're like, all right, well, it makes sense within each.
So let's say it's 30 days, 29 to 39 days. Wouldn't it make sense to make it 10 days a week and, with 3 weeks? You think about it, you put more of a whole number, it might make easier sense for the calculations, especially that now that you have 7 and now they have, every month is a different variation of how many days that they are. So it would make sense to do something that you would be able to consistently follow the same order. And you don't have that. You really don't have it. It's a very interesting concept, and there's no real good answer for it. Every atheist is going to give you... whatever. Okay, let's wait for the atheists. We're going to speak about them soon. The Torah says, and this is what people very much misunderstand. You think that you have to believe in God. Yeah, do you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Yeah. I'm sure it's going to give me everything I want. It's going to send me my man, and it's going to give me a brand new, and it's going to send me the beautiful dress, and it's going to do that. And I believe, which is great, and you should, and you're required. It's a munah, bitachon, and you're required to do that. However, the Torah says numerous times that you have to know that there is a God. Knowledge is very different than belief. Knowledge means that you know for certain. And again, for certain, as we spoke before, to the most ability that you're able to be certain about anything. But the idea is that you have to know for a fact that there is a God. And you look at, for example, in Exodus chapter 16, verse 12, V'yadatem ki ani Hashem Elokechem. You will know, V'yadatem is knowledge, you will know that I am your God. In Joshua, in Yehoshua chapter 4, verse 24, Leman dat kol amei haaretz es yad Hashem. That everybody will know the power of God. And we have this numerous places. You look in Isaiah, Yeshayahu, chapter 43, verse 10. Leman tedu v'ta'minu li. That you know and believe in me. This is very interesting. That you know me and you have to believe in me. This is knowledge that we're speaking about here. Knowing means that you know that this is black and this is white. Right? That you know something. That's how you're supposed to know it. Now, if you're supposed to know God, then we can extend that idea, and this is my own 2 cents. You can extend the idea that if you have to know about God, then you have to know about religion. You have to be able to know which religion is right and which religion is false. I consistently get to this day tremendous amount of heat and pushback on why I'm messing with other religions. Why you got to mess with it? Let everybody just do their own thing, and it's fine. And granted, if they want to do their own thing, by all means, let them do their own thing. And people take it very personally. I tell them again and again, I don't mean to offend you. I don't mean to hurt you. I don't mean to do that. I'm just simply telling you the truth. You don't like it, don't listen to me. I really don't. I know, and in fact, I was speaking once at a place, and I was speaking very strong, and one of the guys whispered to me, and he's like, yo, dude, you gotta, lighten up a little bit. This is a crowd. And I'm like, I really don't care. I'm like, don't invite me. I said that on camera. I said, don't invite me again. I'm not going to change what I'm saying. I'm like, I really don't care if you don't invite me again to speak by your place. I'm going to say what it's going to say. And guess what? They invited me again numerous times, again and again. But to be honest, I really don't care if you're going to be. And I'll explain something that happened quite some time ago. I had a very strong argument, a very heated argument with a person about Mishkav Zachar, which is same gender relations. Let's keep it clean, right? Okay. So and they were so much so that they obviously had a very, very personal. I don't know if they were or they knew somebody very close to them, but they were very, very closely related into the subject. And it was going back and forth. It was like, it's what's the problem with it? Let everybody love whoever they want. I'm like, they could love whatever they want, but I'm telling you the Torah's opinion. And we're going back and forth to the point where it goes and they stand up and they say, you know what? He says, this is what Rabbi Zitron says. So I'm like, no, this is what the Torah says. And they were like, no. They knew the whole Torah. They were like, no, this is, and it was like, you know how it's heated when someone gets like really angry and they stand up. Then, it's like, so like they were standing, like, no, this is what Rabbi Zitron says. I'm like, no, it's what Leviticus chapter 18 verse 22 says, that a person is not allowed to lie. A man is not allowed to lie with another man like he would lie with a woman. It's pretty straight out forward there. You're not allowed to do that. And then they were like pushed into the corner. So they were like, well, how many people even believe that the Torah is divine? So I said, a little over 4 billion. And then they were like, they thought I didn't understand them, so they repeated the question. I said, how many people believe that the Torah is divine? And I was like, I said 4 billion. I'm like, if you didn't hear me the first time, the second time is still the same number. It hasn't changed since last we spoke, which was 6 seconds ago. So, back to the video thing. Fine, whatever, yeah. So we connect things, and then, yeah. Okay, so in any case, and they were like, what are you talking about, 4 billion people? I'm like, the Christians and the Muslim both believe that the Torah was divine. The Christians believe it as is. The Muslim thinks that we made some changes, but they both believe the Torah was divine. The Muslims and the Christians, so you're adding it, roughly you're speaking, let's say, 2.1, 2.2 billion Christians. You're talking about 1.8 to 2.2 billion Muslims. You're going between 4 to 4.5 billion people in the world believe that the Torah is divine. And they all believe, by the way, the ones that believe that same-gender relations is a big no-no. And furthermore, as I said, which is an interesting fact, there's roughly about 7.6 billion people in the world. You know what's something very, very, very scary and very fascinating at the same point in time? When I was, after I said that number, I was like, what, is it really 7.6? So I went to do some research. There is a world human calculator. I don't know what it's called actually. It gives you live count on how many people die and how many people are born at that point in time. This is one of the most scariest things that you'll see. It's literally, you see the people that are dead. It's like, like the national debt they have have you ever seen that? There's like a billboard. Is it still out there? It's still up there? There's a billboard out there that's like all the debt that U.S. owes for, whatever, like to like everybody else, mostly China, but whatever, to everybody else, right? The debt that we owe, and you look at it, it's like the numbers are like fan. It's like you don't even see the numbers. It's like they're like growing. That's how it looks. So you see like 7.6, whatever, like, I don't know, 987654321, whatever it is. And you see like the one like going down, and then going up. And you see the number of deaths, the number of born. We don't appreciate life. You see like in a minute, you're able to see like, hundreds if not thousands of people die. And then hundreds if not thousands of people that are born. How do they do the numbers? I have no idea. It might be some guy, a fat guy with the Cheetos, just like pressing buttons. Like I'm pretty sure now someone died. It could be that. I don't know the authenticity of it. But the idea, it's very logical that the numbers are roughly, they are roughly, and it's interesting. It does it by country. It does it by country. So you see how many people are in America, how many people are in Israel, how many people are in Afghanistan, how many people are in Syria. That number is really fluctuating. You see all this different ideas on it. It's something very, we don't appreciate life. Can you appreciate, how instantly like that, 100 people just died. 1,000 people were just born. And it's not because I snapped my finger. It's just in a second. I'm just saying that, time. It's crazy. Do we appreciate it? Do we appreciate being here when so many people are not here anymore and they were here 1 second ago? And, so many people are now here before and then they weren't here a second ago. We don't really appreciate what we're dealing with. But when you think about it, 7.6 billion people, right? That's the number that we're dealing with. More than half the population of the world believes that the Torah is divine. Isn't that fantastical? I'm going to stick with that word. Right? Maybe we could put it in like chutzpah into the dictionary. So it's something really unbelievable. What's even more hilarious, and I call this hilarious, is 23 times in the Torah it says that it was never going to be changed. Yet half the world believes that the Torah is divine, believes the Torah came from God, but yet they change it. I'm like, 23! It's not like one time accidentally it was like slipped in there, like the Torah's never going to be changed, before. 23 times, right? And I have all the sources of all 23 different verses in the 5 books of Moses where it says the Torah is never going to be changed. How do you explain that? How do you deal with that and claim well, Jesus came afterwards and everything has changed? Where do you get that from? Where? It's nowhere to be found. So, I don't know how they call me every time I'm in class. Every time I'm in class, I get a certain phone call from a certain person. And I'll tell you, being that I get it now, it's off topic again. We're nowhere close to, I'm sorry, whatever, okay, whatever, it's fine. which I don't know how this rhymes me. We're learning tonight L'Refuah Shlema to Avraham ben Bracha. Okay. So, anyways, my brain works in weird ways. Let's call it fantastical ways, right? I get a phone call every so often from a certain person who is not 100%. Can we say that? Is that politically correct? There happens to be that these type of people, you don't realize it, but these type of people are very, very holy. Their souls are holier than you. So you laugh at that, whatever it is, they are very, very holy. They don't have, for a certain aspect, they don't have free will. Not only do they don't have free will, they don't get punished for the things that they do. They're here for a certain period of time and they're going straight to Gan Eden. They have a very, very high level of a soul. And there was one big rabbi, whenever he saw somebody who wasn't 100%, he would stand up for them. And really, you should do that. You really should do that because these people are very, 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 very holy. These people are very, very holy, and it's not chas v'shalom that anybody should ever make fun of them or look down on them. But I get a phone call from every so often from this the type of congregation, and they call me, and I try to answer as much as I can because it's very, very important that you have to give them the time. You don't know, in the next world who they are and who you are. They're like up there, and you're like the dust of their feet. So if they call and they speak, I give them as much time as I can, except for during class. And I call very often. And what do they usually do? They give me musal. They give me a rebuke. And I get the most hilarious different types of rebukes. Right? What type of undergarments do you wear? Make sure you wear only this type and not this type. And they follow up with this. Did you listen to what I said before? Did you not listen to what I said before? They went through this at all point in time. But the point that I'm saying in the story is that it's very, very important to teach these people to treat these people with utmost respect and to give them the time of day. People say like, okay, this person is crazy, and why do I have to speak to them? No, you should speak to them and give them the time of day. You should say they could tell you about the UFO that they just met, and you'll be like, yes, I understand, that's unbelievable. Don't it's very well.
After the blank face.
Don't face a smile. They really, some of these people need attention. Whatever it is, they're very holy people, and you really have to treat them accordingly. So that was part of my Musar session that I unfortunately missed by that person. Anyways, moving back to the topic at hand. I'm just going to let you know right now, I'm not editing anything that's coming out over here. This is, whatever is coming out of my mouth is going up online. Usually I edit it, but today, so I guess we're on a tightrope at this point. Okay, so, the idea behind it is that when you look at Judaism, when you look at everything else, there's nothing to compare. There really is nothing to compare. And that's why I bring all the other ideas inside of it, because it really shows you the difference between Judaism and any other religion, cult or gathering or whatever it is, spiritual awakening that people have. Then the question is asked, but I don't understand. The idea in Judaism is that you have to go according to the numbers, right? You have to go according to the majority. So this was a Christian, somebody who once went to a rabbi and says, you have to follow the majority. Are majority Christians or are majority Jews? Majority are Christians. You must follow the majority. So the rabbi responded, and I'll tell you what the rabbi responded, and I'll tell you a little bit of a different answer for that also. The rabbi responded and says, imagine two people, imagine you're walking into and there's a disaster. I don't know, King Kong is loose, and all the Asians are running, right, and the cameras, and they're running away, and some of you get that reference, some of you don't. Well, they will go and I told you I'm not adding anything. We're going in a hole here that we cannot get out of. So they're running away from it, and you see there's two groups of people that are running in separate directions. Now you have a choice. You're going to follow one of them or one of them. You have to go in either one of the two directions. You see one group, a very, very large group. You see another group, a very, very small group. You would think initially, I'll run with, better yet, the larger group, because they must, but let's say you look at who's leading the larger group. You see a blind guy, right, with those glasses and the stick, and he's the one who's leading everybody. Are you now going, and then you see somebody else who looks like he knows exactly where he's going, but he has a small following. Who are you going to follow? The large group or the small group? The small group. So he says when you look at Judaism, you look at who's the specialist. Who's the specialist over here? Who knows where he's going? The Christians and the Muslims, which claim 99% of them don't even know how to read Hebrew, and they know what the Torah says, they tell you what the Torah says, or the people that actually know what they're talking about. Who are you going to follow? And I'll tell you a different example as well. There was a person that was diagnosed with a very, very rare disease. And the doctor came in, the specialist came in and said, listen, you have to take this medication. If you don't take this medication, you're going to die. And you have about a week left, so you better decide very quickly. And he's about to take the medication, like, of course I'll take the medication. And another doctor runs in and says, whoa, don't do it. If you take that medication, you're going to die. So now this person in a place is stuck between a hard place and a rock, a hard place and a rock. I don't know why I can't get that saying right. Right? He's stuck between a hard place and a rock and a hard place, whatever. He's stuck in a situation where he has no obvious solution. So what would you think would be the solution to do?
Ask another one.
Oh, very good. Okay, excellent. I asked this to the men class, and they would like take the medication. I'm like, whoa, dude. I'm like, relax. Why are you taking the medication? Yeah. I'm like, you should ask more people. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like, do me a favor before you make any large decisions, come to me. So yeah, you ask more opinions. Imagine they come back with 21 opinions. 21 opinions. One person says take the medication. 20 people says don't take the medication. Who do you listen to?
20.
20.
Or do research.
Okay, research. You're close.
There are the 20 people.
What about if I tell you that out of the 20 people, all doctors. 5 of them are veterinary physicians, specialists in dogs. Another 5 of them they have a PhD, they have a doctorate in math. Another 5 of them are, ophthalmologists, and another 5 of them are podiatrists, eye doctors and foot doctors. This one has a very rare, stomach disease. And the one person that says do it is the greatest specialist in the field, in the world. He's telling you to do it. And the other 20 people don't really know what they're talking about. Now I'm going to ask you the question. Who are you going to listen to? 21. So very good. Okay, so now it doesn't only depend on majority, it depends on who's leading the majority. Do they know what they're talking about, or do they not know what they're talking about? When you look at all the other religions, Hinduism has almost 1 billion people. I have a guy that was practicing Hinduism at one point in time. He just sent me emails, about you have no idea what these people worship, and you think that what I said. This is ridiculous. Some of them cut them. They're literally like blood flowing down their stuff, their face. They're going, and this is what they're worshiping. And you're like, okay, should I follow the people that cut themselves, or should I follow somebody? You're looking at it. Just because there's a large number doesn't mean that they are correct. It doesn't mean that they're following somebody who knows what they're talking about. When you look at all the religions, especially the ones that came after Judaism, when you think about it, what is most likely the person that has more information about this? It's going to be the Jews. Because A, they know what they're talking about, because they actually read and speak the language and write the language. And B, they have a direct connection, a direct tradition from rabbi to student from the beginning of the Torah until now. So the idea is that to say that it was fake, to say that anything is very, very unlikely. Furthermore, there is a special quality in Jews, and special you can call it in many different ways. One thing Jews are not, they're not gullible. Right? We're not gullible people. For the majority of us, I've met a few Jews that are very gullible, but for the majority of us, they're not gullible people. And not only that, when you think about it, like maybe Moses was such a charismatic speaker that he was able to go and convince everybody, like complete false, whatever it is, make up the whole idea. The problem with that is that in numerous places in the Torah, it says that Moses was not only not a good speaker, he had a speech impediment. It says in Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, Moshe is speaking to God, Lo ish dvarim anochi. I'm not a man of words. Moses literally saying, like, I'm not the speaker type. Like, maybe get Aaron, maybe get somebody else who's a speaker type. Furthermore, Moses tells God in Exodus chapter 6, verse 12, the Jewish people didn't listen to me. How is Paro going to go listen to me if my own Jewish brothers didn't listen to me? I am of closed lips. Right? And numerous times, again and again, it says about Moshe that he was not a good orator. He had a speech impediment. People were not listening to him. And in fact, you open a Gemara. What is the Gemara filled with? Arguments. The Jews don't accept things easily. We just don't. You sell something to us, we're going to ask 1,000 questions. Even if you're giving us a winning lottery ticket, we're going to ask 1,000 questions, right? We might take it first, put it in our pocket, and then ask the questions. But we're going to be asking questions. Why are you doing this? Who are you? Like, why? What's going on? We're just people that ask questions. We're known throughout history, and throughout the Tanakh also, we're known as Am HaMinifchar, the chosen people, Am HaSefer, the people of the book, Am HaNetzach, the eternal people, and Ol HaGoyim, a light unto the nations. But we're also known as something else. In Exodus chapter 32, verse 9, we're known as Am Kshe Oref. Anybody know what Am Kshe Oref means? Stubborn people. We're known as stubborn people. And you could really know about this. Like, I used to fly more recently more frequently. Recently, I don't know where that came from. More frequently than now. And if you fly with El Al, I really give credit to the people that work in El Al. It really breaks my heart sometimes. I've seen people that just walk up to the counter, let me speak to your manager, please. And be like, what's the problem? Manager, but they don't even bother with anything else. Like manager. Like imagine you're going on there and the people like, let me speak to an agent, please. Jews don't wait. Like, if you know your problem, is this your problem? Please say yes. agent, supervisor. Let me speak to the owner of the company. Like we're not interested in anything else. We want to go to the top. We're not. These people, they go in there, the airline, whatever. They're about to fly out. They're not even like, can you tell me the problem? You cannot help me. Only the manager can help me. Right? They're not even interested in dealing with that. We're stubborn people, and we don't rest until we speak to the top. We don't. And have you ever seen somebody go and tell? You go to the to the El Al desk, and the overweight, right? So I don't know what it's the number now, right? I don't know, whatever it is. Let's say 50 pounds, right? And it's 52 pounds, right? What do people say? Check again. I mean, like, it's still on the counter. We still see the weight. We still see that it's not bad. Check it, reset it. Something wrong with this. I checked it at home. 50 pounds exactly. Something over here, right? And they might try to lift it with their foot. See, look, all of a sudden, 50 pounds. It's all of a sudden really good. Like we don't accept things easily, even when we're in trouble. We don't accept things easily, right? I don't want to speak about what happens when the cop pulls Jew over, right? Because first of all, they have 50 BPA, what is it called? BPA cards, right? We're dealing with. I know the councilman, I know this, I know the judge, I know this, I know the Supreme Court. You want your person, you want to save your job. You better make sure, a warning will be okay. I'm like, sir, you were driving without headlights and taillights, and you were driving 50 miles above the speed limit. Don't tell me, exactly, especially if it was an old bubby, right? So I'll tell you exactly how fast I was going. We're stubborn people. We're stubborn people. We don't take things lightly. We're not an easy sell. The fact that we accepted the Torah and the fact that we're so stubborn shows also its validity to something. You can't sell something to somebody. If the more stubborn that they are and they accept it, then must be that there's either you're a great salesman or there's something really true about this. Harry Truman, the 33rd president of the United States of America. You guys know that? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, that, this country, right? So he goes over to Golda Meir. Golda Meir was the prime minister at the time. At that time, there was roughly 180 million Americans living in America, 1.8 million Israelis living in Israel. And Harry Truman goes over to Golda Meir, the prime minister, and he goes to her and he says, you don't know how tough it is to run a country with 180 million people. And Golda Meir says, you don't know how hard it is to run a country with 1.8 million prime ministers. Because everybody in Israel is a prime minister. Have you ever seen a Jew talk politics? They know better than everybody else. They know that, Obama, Trump, they don't know what they're talking about. Bibi, forget about it. This is what I would do had I been a prime minister, and this is the correct thing to do. Right? We're not easy people to deal with, right? And in fact, there's numerous times where we're arguing with Moses. Moses just did all these crazy miracles, and we argue with him. There's a certain point in time, if a person punches you and you fall down enough times, stop asking for more. And again, this is not related. Moses didn't punch us. Relax. But the idea is that they saw so much stuff. They still had questions. They still had doubts on it. But the truth is that this stubbornness really helped us, because this stubbornness helped us go through the communist Russia, where you still had people that were still religious after communists. You still had people that were keeping Shabbat in America in the early 1900s, which means every single week, if you kept Shabbos, you were fired the next day. And yet you still had people that kept Shabbos. You know why? Because we're stubborn people. And you look at Rashi, what it says over there, it says we don't accept criticism lightly. And trust me, I know that firsthand, because I give criticism, right? We don't accept it. The fact that we do accept it and we do have it, that shows something, that shows something on it. I'm going to say it right now, we're not going to finish in the next 5 minutes, so if anybody needs to leave, by all means, Chazak Wolf, do what you got to do. We got a little sidetrack today, so we're just a little bit, right? So we're almost finished our introduction. So the idea is that not only are Jews stubborn, but Jews are also very studious. Jews are very, very studious. Just go to any college, right? The people right away drift to the people with the yarmulkes to copy off them. They're not looking at they're right away going off that. The idea is that also there was a 12th century Catholic monk that observed, and it says, and I'm going to quote, "A Jew, however poor, if he has 10 sons, he will put them all to letters and not for gain as the Christians do." This is a Christian scholar saying that if the Jewish people have children, they're going to put them to study, not to go work and make money. There was a certain Christian scholar that visited Warsaw during the right before the First World War, and he saw a bunch of cabs, which back then were horse and buggies, but cabs that were empty. There was no one inside them. So he asked. There was a young Jewish boy nearby. He says, "Where is everybody?" So the Jewish boy told them they were going and they're studying. They were studying Torah. But in the middle of the day, they all just stop what they're doing. They go learn for and they weren't going to learn sitting in a class lecture and they got, the rabbi was saying funny stories. They were learning, they were sweating, they were screaming at each other, they were going and they were trying to figure out the Gemara, the Halakha, all these different things. They were working on this because that's what Jews do. Jews are studying people. We constantly in the book, we're constantly studying. The problem is now we're more secular. We're still studying, we're just studying different things, right? We're still studying, and that's why you look at it. There was a study done in 1971 that 89% of native-born U.S. Jews significantly exceeded their father's level of education. And they compared it to seven different ethnic and religious groups. Exceeded by far, beat everybody else. We're people that just goes and study. We're there. We're in for the knowledge. In fact, in 1981, another study was done that at that point in time there was between 2.2 to 2.6% of the American population were Jews, including Reform, Conservative, everybody, Orthodox, everybody else. Harvard University had between 28 to 40% of Jewish population inside of there. The top university in America, I think, right? It still is, I think, is, I don't think it's Brooklyn College, is, as some people would like to say, 28 to 40% of Jewish people were in Harvard University while we don't even make 3% of the population. How do you explain that? Because we are people that are studious. We are people that are studying. Now, this answers a question that maybe God really gave the Torah. God, that whole thing happened, but we lost it over the time. We're studious people. That's what we do. That's why, being an optician, is a great business in the Jewish, because everyone has glasses. We're always studying, we're always reading, we're always doing things. We're always reading, we're always studying. Now, granted, it's not everybody, but a very large majority of the Jewish population, even secular, it doesn't matter, we're into education. When we're doing all this stuff, it's very unlikely that we forgot everything all of a sudden. Our lapse, all of a sudden, what happened? We had a few years where we were addicted to marijuana, right? And then the brain, we're about to go on a very long tangent right now. No, okay, fine, okay. A very short tangent. Marijuana does fry your brain. I've spoken to people. I have one class that I give very frequently, all potheads. I see their eyes. It's glazed over. It's I feel like I'm speaking to eighth graders or things like that. It's really you cannot tell me. And they tell me no, what are you talking about? It helps me concentrate. When was the last time you concentrated, dude? When was it? You could see their eyes are glazed over. They're like this, and they're I could say the same thing 10 times over. And be wow, that was good, dude. Why do they come to the class? That was free food. I don't know why. Got the munchies. I don't know. So. They're hungry in between also. They eat a lot. Okay, so anyways, but they're still skinny. So go figure. Different class for a different time. Let's speak a little bit about miracles. When you look, let's say for example the Exodus. You look at the Exodus. You have many miracles that happen during the Exodus. What?
Are you going to answer the question about the 7-day week, or is that just
The answer is the Torah. The only logical explanation for it is that there's 7 days a week because that's what the Torah says. There's no other logical explanation for it. Ask an atheist, and they'll probably say something that's nonsensical, which is another word that I made up. Yeah, I think so. We're on a roll today. Fantastical and nonsensical. Okay, write that down. So someone submit it to Webster Dictionary, please. Okay, so is they still even around anymore? It's probably Google Dictionary, right? Well, I know he's not around, or she. Isn't it Miriam? Yeah, and so maybe it's a guy. You never know nowadays. Okay, so let's say the 10 plagues. Let's say you say that the blood was some sort of infestation of microorganism of the marine, family that turned everything red. I'll give it to you. The frogs and lice, the pestilence, all that stuff, the darkness, all some had of sort of ecological fluke that just so happened to start and stop when Moses said. I'll give it to you. How do you explain the death of the firstborn? How do you explain that? Did they have a community meeting, only the firstborns, and they all ate something and they all died? We would have seen some sort of documentation for that. How do you explain the death of the firstborn if you want to say everything else was some sort of just by happenstance? There are certain things that you don't have answers to. Let's look at the man. The man is something so unbelievable, so significant. And this is how Rabbi David, Gottlieb, thank you, explains this. Thank you for coming today. Okay, so this is how Rabbi David Gottlieb explains this. He says that when you're witnessing a report, there are certain criteria that's very likely that you misrepresented the report. An example, let's say you're not emotionally stable. And I'm not talking about in general. I'm talking about just in that point of time. Let's say you're very anxious. You're very depressed. You're very that. So when you see something, You might say, well, I just saw God speak to this taxi cab driver, Ahmadinejad, right? And I was there in the back seat, and I saw everything. Now, if you're very anxious and having a panic attack or on other sort of emotional distress, it's very, very possible what you say you saw and what you really saw is not really the same idea. But if you see something and you're in a calm state of mind, that's more likely that it's going to be true. That's step number one. Step number two is if a miracle happened, if it's repeated again and again, then you could say, okay, then there's something going on over here. It wasn't just one time that I just sort of woke up on the wrong side of the bed and I saw something crazy. If it happens again and again, that's something that shows you. Number three, if you have more than one or two people witness an event, that also shows the validity of something. Which means is if you saw somebody fly, if you just saw somebody fly and your best friend, who's a teddy bear and doesn't talk, saw somebody fly, then it's very unlikely that anybody's going to believe you that somebody flew. But let's say you and 6,000 of your friends that are all alive, well, and have a heart, are going and they say that they saw you, then it's very, very possible and likely that what you saw is true, especially if everybody else also claims the same thing. Number four, did you directly experience this crazy miracle, or did somebody tell you what you experienced? You know how you have it okay, what you saw is like this. All right, let me explain to you what you saw. God, and so on and so forth. And number five, do you have any self-interest in saying the story? Do you have any self-interest in saying, yeah, you know what, this is what happened, and this is the reason that it happened. So, the idea behind this is that you look at the mun. The mun is something that answers all these criteria. Number one, it fell thousands of times. It fell daily for 40 years. So it fell thousands of times. You could say that people were nervous, anxious, not emotionally stable for the first, I'll give you 1,000 times, right? For the first few years, they weren't sure what they're talking about. After a certain point in time, they kept on falling. They were in a calm state of mind. They were like, okay, we see that food is voting for heaven, right? You're in a calm state of mind. So you're there looking at things in a logical perspective. Number two, repetition. It happens so many times that you're able to see when something happens so many times that it must be that there's a miracle, something going on over here, or there's a giant in heaven that's sprinkling food down on us, exactly the portions that we need, and exactly in front of the tent that we need that we live in. Number four is, do you need some sort of level of expertise over here? Do you need somebody to be like, okay, what you're seeing over here is food. This is what you eat. It was pretty obvious. It fell right in front of their house, and they eat it. And that was it. There was no this is food, eat food. Okay, thank you. I eat food. Now, it wasn't something that you have to think about it, that it was so difficult to come, right? Food, many people understand, especially Americans, we understand food. We deal usually with food on an hourly basis. And finally, number five, self-interest. There's a self-interest. Maybe there's self-interest. Maybe you want to say, okay, listen, God gave me food. He said, right in front of my tent, He gave me food, and that's what I'm telling you. Who are they telling this to? Their neighbors who also got food? Or everybody else that they know and they speak to who also had food? Or maybe they're telling this lie to their children. You're like, hey, God sent me food from heaven. Why would you lie to it? No one in the logical perspective would want to knowingly lie to their children. This is something very different in the miracle of the man that proves also a validity of the miracles that happen. There is a book called The Bible as History, written by Werner Keller, that says, no, you want to know what really happened? I'll tell you what really happened. He claims like this. He says that there's bushes in the Sinai desert. These bushes, when they're eaten by ants in the middle of the leaves, there is a sap that oozes out. That sap is both nutritious and sweet, part of hearty, healthy breakfast, right? So he claims that the Jewish people, they ate the sap, they survived, and that's where they got manna. Never fell from heaven. It's the sap that they were eating. The questions that you could ask on this is, number one, how come? First of all, no, there is the desert bushes. They're claiming that.
There's such thing?
Yeah, there is such thing. Yeah. So they could claim and say okay, if let's say that did happen, how did eating from bushes translate into food falling from heaven in front of my tent? When did that transition come in? It couldn't be right in the beginning, because they would have been they'll be eating bush food, right? And they're eating this bushes food, and all of a sudden, Moses comes by and be like, hey guys, listen, this is food from heaven. You're welcome. It's not going to happen, because they're like, no, Moses, we're eating from a bush. And that's we're seeing that we're doing. So you can't say the lie right then. But maybe you could say the lie happened 100 years later. But the problem with that is that everybody experienced this miracle, and the parents told their children, be like, hey, we ate food from heaven. That's crazy stuff. And they said, your grandfather ate food from heaven. All of a sudden, if you want to say that it started off as your grandfather ate food from a bush, and your grandfather ate food from the bush, and all of a sudden one person came around and be like, hey, it wasn't a bush, it was heaven. Then everybody would raise their hand, metaphorically, because Jews don't raise their hand, right? And I'm kidding, we all do. They raise their hand. They say, I heard the story a little bit differently. My granddaddy, he ate food from a bush. How come your granddaddy ate it from a southern, obviously, Jews? How come your granddaddy ate it from heaven? It doesn't make sense. And if there was a really transition in the story, we would see different variations of it. We would have some group of Jews that say, we ate bush food, and another group of Jews that say, no, we ate man food. But because we don't have this claim is very weak and very unlikely that it is true. Okay, let's finish off with one idea. And when I say finish off, I am not saying entirely honest with you, but we're almost finished off. So we're almost there. Okay, but no, really, not that much longer. Maybe 10 to 15 hours. So now the stubborn, when you look about it, the idea, you have a stubborn, studious Jew. It really is too. A stubborn, studious Jew. Can you sell him a miracle? Can you tell him, hey, this is what you saw? I don't think so. You cannot sell a Jew something that happened. You're going to sell him something that didn't happen? That's very, very unlikely. If the Jews accepted that we got the man from heaven, that we got the Torah, and went through all these different rigorous criteria, then it must be that this is true. It must be that it's validated. And you know what? And well, this idea really brings it forth home. The war of Amalek. There's something very interesting about the war of Amalek. The war of Amalek. It says when Yitro went and he came to the Jewish nation. You know how he came to the Jewish nation? He saw two things. Does anybody know what he saw? Nobody? Okay. I'll give you a hint. And by hint, I'll tell you the answer. He saw the splitting of the sea and the war of Amalek. He saw those two things. He says, you know what? That's it. I'm joining the Jewish nation. I have a question. Out of all the miracles that happened, Matan Torah, Exodus, everything else that happened, the two that he picked was splitting of the sea, which is good. I get that. And the war of Amalek, I don't understand. What's the war with the war of Amalek? It's just a war. Why would that change his mind into saying, you know what? This is the nation I want to join. This is obviously true. And the answer for that is that we look into the way that Be'el Yosef, it goes and explains the war of Amalek. The war of Amalek has 5 different criteria, 5 different very odd aspects to the war of Amalek. Number 1 is that Moses didn't actually fight in the war of Amalek. All the previous wars, he actually fought. He was actually in the front lines, he was fighting. The war of Amalek, he stood on the mountaintop. This is, by the way, the story with the hands up, hands down, right? Right, this, not the wave, right? The hands up, they won. The hands down, they were losing. He sent in whatever, the rest of the people to go and fight the war. Moshe was not there. The question is, why wasn't he there? Why wasn't he there? All the other wars, he was there. Why this war did he remove himself? Furthermore, he didn't touch his staff. His staff was not part of the war. It was not part of the war. It was put on the side. All the other wars, he had his staff, his trusty staff with him. That's question number 2. Question number 3 is that... Well, no, I'm up to question number 4. I combined 2 questions, but don't worry about it. Question number 3, or 4, depending on it. I combined Moses not being part of it and Moses staying on the sideline. But whatever it is, doesn't matter. We're going to answer all of them anyways. How come this is the only war that the results waver so frequently? If his hands were up, they were winning. Hands are down, losing. Up, winning. Down, losing. In no other wars in the Chumash does it speak about that the wars they changed so drastically. And number 5, it was the only time in the history of the Torah that it speaks about that Moshe was weak. He had to have Aaron and Hur holding up his hands. He couldn't do it by himself. Why couldn't he hold up his hands? He was so strong, so physically strong. This is the only time that he shows physical debility in the Torah. And the answer is, the Ber Yosef goes and it says that in order to understand this, you have to understand what the Jews were thinking about, what their mindset was before the war. And in fact, before the war, the Jews actually doubted if God is with them. And they said in Exodus chapter 17, verse 7, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbenu im ayin. Is God with us or not? And the question is, why are you asking that? God just did the 10 plagues. He did so many miracles, splitting of the sea. He did so many miracles. Why are you really asking if God is with you now? You saw so many things. Why would you doubt it? So the idea behind this that explains the Ber Yosef is that they thought maybe there's still a possibility, right? Remember, we're stubborn people. Maybe Moses did everything. Maybe Moses was such a great magician, so great that he was the one who orchestrated everything. Somehow he was able to do it. Maybe he did it. How do we know that God is with us? So Moses says, oh, you see that? I'm going to withdraw myself from the war, and we're going to see how that works. And the idea is further, is that you see this, that the Jewish people in Exodus chapter 16, verse 3, they said to Moses, you took us out of Egypt. They didn't say God took us out of Egypt. They said, you took us out of Egypt. Furthermore, when they wanted to water in Exodus chapter 17, verse 2, they said, they told Moses, give us water so we could drink, as if Moses is in control of everything, and he's the one who's who's in charge of the water. They thought at that point in time, explains the Be'el Yosef, that Moses was doing everything. So this is how everything was orchestrated to show that Moses was nothing to do with the picture, and he pulled himself out. We're in the war of Amalek. All of a sudden, what happens? He's not involved in the war. He says, you're going to win the war without me. And he goes and he makes it crystal clear that you're going to win the war without him. He's standing on the sidelines. Not only is he standing on the sidelines, he's not using his trusty staff, which so many miracles happen, all the plagues, all the splitting, so many things happen with his staff. He's not using that for the war. Furthermore, the battle wavers. If his hands are up, they're successful. The hands are down, they're weak. They're losing. So you think, aha, maybe this proves that Moses is in fact doing everything. Because when his hands are up, that shows that he has the power to win us over. But when his hands are down, that means he doesn't have the ability. But then the question is, if he has the power to win, you don't think he has the power to hold up his own hands? He can't hold up his own. He needs to have two people holding up his hands because he was physically weak from it. And furthermore, what was he doing when he was putting up his hands? He was pointing at heaven. He says, you look at heaven. If you have the emunah and bitachon in God, you'll win the war. And this is a very, very important lesson in life. If you have faith and belief in God, you'll be very successful. If you don't have, if you think if you think everything is up to me, everything is dependent on how much work and effort I put in it, which is true, you do have to put work and effort into it. But if you think the bottom line is depending on what I do, then you're not going to be successful. Moses was saying, forget about how strong you are. Forget about how much of a winning streak that you are. If you look up to heaven, he pointed his hands up. If you go to heaven, if you look up to God, and then when he pointed up, the Jews looked up to get to heaven, and they saw, you know what? We're only successful because of God. That's when they won. He put his hands down. That's when they lost. This is the idea that Moshe withdrew himself from the war. He's saying, you think it was me? You really think it was me? It has nothing to do with me. He pointed his hands up. It all has to do with God. And when Yisro heard this, he says, aha. He says, I see now that it wasn't anything with Moshe. This is actually legit. The Matan Torah, nothing has sold him. You know what sold him? The fact that he knew for a fact that this all came from God and nothing else. This is the beauty of the lesson that we could learn from the war of Amalek. And by the way, just for a side note, we don't believe, even though we're speaking about miracles today, we don't believe in Moses, we don't believe in the Torah because of the miracles. The Rambam says in Yisodei Torah, chapter 8, he says that we believe in Moses. You know why I believe in Moses? Because we stood at Har Sinai and we heard God speak to Moses and say, so on and so forth, all the commandments. That's why we believe in. Not because we, are somehow, saw so many miracles. Miracles don't prove anything except that you know how to do a miracle. Now, for real, this is what we're going to finish off with. To finish off with this idea that the Torah speaks. Oh, we're not even that much over. Okay, why are you even complaining, guys? I don't even know why you're complaining. So, I don't even know why I bring it up. I should not. Okay, no, I should bring it up. The Torah nonstop brings up any problem, any sin that the Jewish people do. It's brought out to light. It's brought out to light. This is what they did wrong. Look at the sin of the golden calf. If we made it up, we made up this sin. Why are we? We made up this Torah. Why would we put the sin of the golden calf in there? Yeah, right after God gave us the Torah, we all sinned. Yeah, we all sucked real bad. We all did something really, really bad. Why would we say that? If we made it up, we would take that out. Furthermore, you have you look at all the leaders in the Jewish nation in history. Let's speak with Abraham. Abraham, he wasn't criticized. He didn't technically do anything wrong, but it does say that he had a son Ishmael. Why does it have to say that he had a son Ishmael? Couldn't it have been a distant cousin? Maybe a neighbor. A nephew, a rogue nephew, you know what I'm talking about? Why does it have to be a son? It doesn't look good for Avraham Avinu if his son was the one who went off. Granted, Ishmael did tshuva at the end of the day, but then we go to Yitzchak. Yitzchak had to have Esav. Couldn't Esav be also a cousin? Maybe a neighbor that was really jealous, red-haired, came from a red-haired family, came from Ireland, I don't know. So something that, why does it have to be a son? Not only that, he chases Yaakov, and wanting to kill, so brotherly rivalry, right? You didn't have so much, shalom bayit in that situation going on over there. And you have even furthermore, Yitzchak wanted to give the blessings to Esav. It says in the Torah that Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav. Why put that in there? If we're making something up, that's not a really good sell point. All these problems that we're having. And furthermore, Yaakov, after he's running from Esav, who does he go to? He goes to Lavan, the crook. Not only there, he spends 20 years by the crook's house, and he marries 2 of the daughters. Does he have to marry? Couldn't he marry, the philanthropist of the generation? Let Lavan be a philanthropist, He was going, and he was very successful and everything. The fact that we have all the stories about what he did and all these things, do we really need that information? If we made it up, does it make sense? You're making something up, you're going to make yourself look good. Even people that don't make something up, they make themselves look good somehow always, Then you come inside, you see a guy with a black eye, and like a bruising, you should have seen the other guy. I was like, what do you mean? You fell down and you tripped over a tree stump and you're spacing out or texting on your phone. And be like, what other guy? People try to make themselves look good. If you're selling something, if you're making something up, don't you think that the Jewish people will make themselves look good. You look at Moshe. Rabbi Victor Miller explains that not only Moshe is criticized, he's criticized in the worst way possible, as if he was rebelling against God. In Bamidbar, chapter 20, verse 24, this is talking about the hitting of the rock, Mei Meribah. When he was hitting the rock, and by the way, this sin is questionable. What was the sin? There's a question in the commentaries. Is it that he hit the rock, or is it that he called the people? He says, hey, hear now you rebels. In Bamidbar, in Numbers, chapter 20, verse 10, he says, hear now you rebels. The sin, from our perspective, is so small, we're not even sure what the sin is. Yet, because of this, we know in the volume, in Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 51, Moshe was punished. He couldn't go to Israel because of this. We put it so much out into the light. Why do we have to put it in? If Moses made up the Torah, you think he would put himself in like that? Furthermore, we have Aaron that goes, and he was part of the building of the golden calf. Miriam spoke Lashon Hara. We're making it up. This is what we're doing. Moshe, why did he have to be from the tribe of Levi? The tribe that killed out Shechem. The tribe, which is also something interesting. The tribe of Levi doesn't have any land in Israel. They have to stay in Arei Miklat. He's from his tribe, and he doesn't. If he's making it up, he should say, okay, the tribe of Levi, we get all the palaces, we're the main things, and everybody else works for us. That's what you think they do. Part of you're in the family. You're in the family. That's when you're going to get the. You're in the Levi family. That's what you're going to be able to do. But he doesn't do that. Everything is very, very backwards in the opposite way that you would think that would be made up. And you'll give you a few more examples and we'll end. Yehoshua went to war against Jericho, right? Jericho, this is in Yeshua chapter 7, verse 11. They were not allowed to touch any of the spoils. One person by the name of Achan touched the spoils, and he did something he shouldn't have done. Because of that, Hashem says, from now on, you're going to lose all the wars moving forward. You're going to lose some of the wars, whatever, moving forward. The question is that, come on, that's pretty good statistics. That's pretty good odds. All the people didn't touch it. One person out of the entire nation touched it. That's pretty good. Why is that bad? And not only that, not only does the Torah say it straight out that we did something bad, but she tells us the punishment for it as well. Do we really have to write that Dinah was raped? Do we really need that information? If we made it up, would we really say that one of the tribe's sisters got raped? Do we really need that information? Will Yosef get sold by his own brothers? The fact of the story of Tamar and Yehuda, we could easily have skipped that thing over. The Jews are the lowest slaves. We could have owned it. We could have been the real estate managers in Egypt, and no one would have known the difference. Why did we have to be the lowest of the lowest? You look at any other religion. You look at the Quran. Is there anything bad that says about Muhammad? The answer is no. There's nothing bad. He's pictured as a saint. Jesus, did he ever do anything bad? No. Even the bad thing that he does, they twist it into something doing good. Yet the Torah, numerous times, says the faults of the leaders, faults of the nation. You know why? Because we're not politically correct. We're not looking for make somebody feel good. We're here to tell you the truth. And this is what happened. This is what gets written. And that's the way it is. The only time and way that's going to happen is if it's true and if it's not made up. This is yet another numerous proof that we have that the Torah not only was completely true and was given by God, but we see that we had no part of it in changing it. Because if we would have changed all these things. Any questions? Yes.
The Torah was dictated to Moshe by God, right?
Correct.
So does that mean everything in Torah should be perfect and complete, and there shouldn't be any mistakes in it?
Correct.
So I have a friend who's, I don't say off the derech, she's completely off there.
Mm-hmm.
So she was arguing this with me, and she said that there are sources for things that are wrong in the Torah, but are actually they're wrong. There's certain things that are wrong in the Torah.
If you know any examples,
I can give you 2 examples.
Send it. Okay, I'm going to give a whole. I'll try to answer now, but I'm going to give a whole class on Bible criticism that I do plan on saying about. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I wrote it down because I was like, tell me because I need proof.
Okay.
So one of the things is that the circumference of a circle, the measurements are given in the Torah, but they're not the same as the actual.
The pi radius is given. It's not given in the Torah. It's given in a hint, and it is accurate. The pi circumference.
It's not. In the Torah, it's rounded to 3, and actually it's 3.14 whatever the pi.
So it is correct.
It's rounded. Said why would it be rounded if it's supposed to be precise?
That doesn't show that it's incorrect. That just shows that it's rounded. Rounded is still correct number.
So she was saying why isn't it a perfect number?
You know how long pi goes to?
Yeah.
Infinite. It keeps on going on and on. So what the Torah is supposed to say at all? The whole book is going to be a book of pi. It doesn't mean, rounded. Even the statistic number. So it's 3.14 if I'm not mistaken for pi. That's rounded. Why is it 3.4, whatever it is, dot. That doesn't show that it's wrong. In fact, that shows that it's true. Because, you round something, that's fine. But look at how they have the number now that they only found mathematically, recently.
I think her point was that, they now it's more precise because they didn't have the math back then, that whoever wrote the Torah.
Because you're rounding something off and you don't give the additional decimal places afterwards does not mean that they didn't know it. It means they didn't write it. but that does not show that they didn't. If they would have said 4.154, then I would say, yeah, that's a pretty big error. But the fact that it's the same exact number, but it's not round, it's not continuous number, it continues for a really long time, pi. There was one sort of genius that kept on going on and on about it, on the numbers that go on after pi. So it's not a number that you would expect anybody to ever write it down fully. Even science doesn't write it down fully.
Why is pi in the Torah? That's like so random.
I believe it's in Sukkah. For the, yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I have to look it up. But there's
in Malachim. Haram made something for Shlomo.
Could be. I have to look it up. It's possible. I have to look it up.
And so there was another source that she remembered was the sun. When Yehoshua stopped the sun, it says in the Torah that he stopped the sun instead of saying that the earth was stopped.
Oh, that's not an answer question. I thought it was a better question. Okay. He's saying that the sun was stopped and not the earth stopped the rotation around the sun?
Yeah, because he said that.
I have to look at the text. That's such an easy answer. Oh, that's what if I prove that to her, she's become religious.
I don't know.
Have her come to class once. I'll gladly debate her. Oh.
She's so short. She was like, she's off.
If she wants, we can make a class just for her questions. I've done that before. People, just her questions.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, just her questions. I'll gladly do that. I have a ball with it. Everybody's invited. Yeah, it'll be a Thursday class. I would more than happy. I take this challenge.
She's my coworker, so we like stop
any day of the week. Oh, I enjoy it. I tell you, I enjoy those things.
She also heard this. There's this belief that there were first 72 different gods that were conjoined together, and that's where the idea of one God.
Please let her come. I will. You know how many debates I had with people. It's enjoyable. It really is. You guys will enjoy it too. It's fun.
I fought back with her. Like I asked if she believes in
72 different gods. These are the virgins that the Muslims got? No relation.
There's a source for it. I don't know what the source is, but whatever.
I don't know. I would love.
72 different gods with 72 different names, and they put it all together. And that's why God is 72 names.
Let her come. Oh, yeah. There's no answer to craziness. Yeah, Grant. I tell her to prepare everything and bring it up. I would greatly do it.
I really try.
Whenever she comes, we'll do it. You have to let me know beforehand so I know not to prepare for the current thing. Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions on camera? Okay, go.
If all the guys, they worship like Yashgar Muhammad, they worship them almost like God, or pretty much they do worship them like God. But so yeah, they're not going to say anything bad about someone they worship like God, but we don't say anything bad about Hashem either.
It's true we don't say anything bad about Hashem either because we cannot say anything bad because of a perfect being. Muhammad was not a perfect, he's a prophet. Prophets make mistakes. Jesus, for example, true, they worship him like God, but he did very, very contradicting things according to the Torah. And the answers that they give is a very weak answer. Yeah, Jesus is above the Sabbath, so he doesn't have to, that's not an answer. It's like somebody that's like, shoot somebody, I'm like, I'm above the law, I can shoot whoever I want. No, you can't. That's not like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay, so go ahead, shoot whatever you want. So it still, doesn't answer the question. It still has, they did conflicting things, especially since they say the Torah is true, and it's legitimate, and then they completely, like 100%, conflicts with what they're saying as well.
Also, what's the literal meaning of the word nah? Like,
I can say please, yeah.
Then why does Moshe say Shemuna Haman? Why does he say like please?
Because even when you're giving rebuke, you have to give it in a nice way. Who was it? Whenever it was it Moshe? No, it was Yaakov. Yaakov, when he gave a rebuke to the people in the shepherds, he said, "Achai, my brothers." You give them you give always rebuke in a nice way. Any other questions? On camera? No other questions? Okay, Chazak Baruch.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.